From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk.
It's time for FLALAW, brought to you by the personal injury attorneys of Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes. This hour will be informative, along with taking your questions and comments. Now, here are your hosts for today's show.
That's right. We are back with FLALAW live on the radio. Thank you for joining us. We are so happy to have you as our listeners. Hopefully you are a faithful listener and you tune in every week. But if this is your first time tuning in to WTAN at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, then welcome. This is FLALAW live on the radio. This is your live legal call-in talk show where you get to hear from us, the attorneys at Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes, and also so many other esteemed colleagues and experts in the legal community around the Tampa Bay area. And tonight is one of those nights. You do have an excellent guest that you get to hear from tonight who has been no stranger to the show. We've had him on a couple times, and each time it's a treat because he's so knowledgeable in criminal law. He also practices civil law. And so his background gives you quite a bit of information in terms of him being able to see things from different sides of the V. He's also previously run for judge. And so I think that he has the acumen and the temperament to be able to address a lot of legal questions and concerns. And we've got some great topics tonight. But before I throw it over to introduce my guest, I will say that we were going to have him in person in the studio live tonight, but he is dealing with what we all deal with at this time of day, which is horrible traffic on the roads trying to get over here to the studio. And we both practice car accident law, and we know that it's not necessarily safe to be trying to rush on the highways, and then the traffic just gets worse and worse. And so I wanted him to be able to cover as much as we can. We do have a lot of ground to cover tonight, and so I wanted to keep it safe. So he'll be calling in here. I believe we do have him hanging on the line in just a moment. But before I bring him in, I want to make sure that we tell everybody how they can continue to tune in and listen in on the show tonight. I know that this is going to be one that you want to share. So if you have friends, family members that are interested in current events, legal topics, trials that are going on right now, then this is the show for you, because we're definitely got our finger on the pulse this evening. So Facebook, you can tune into our firm's Facebook page and YouTube channels. They're both can be found at Perenich, Caulfield, Avril Noyes Injury Lawyers. That allows you to be able to see the live stream. I do having a little bit of technical difficulties with Facebook right now, but YouTube should be working just fine. And go over there. You should be able to see the stream. You can leave your comments, your questions. If you just want to chime in on what we're talking about, that's great. Do that in the chat. Or if you want to call in, you can do that too. It's 727-441-3000. That allows you to call in, be able to get your questions answered live over the air. Or if you just want to chime into the discussion, I think it'll be a great one tonight. With that being said, I don't want to waste any more time with the intro. I want to get into our show because we have Attorney Cornelius Demps, who's been a previous guest of ours, and I'm so happy to have him back again with us tonight. If you are there, Cornelius, go ahead and give us a chime in and say hello to our listeners. Remind them who you are, where you work, and we'll go ahead and get into the show tonight.
All right, awesome, Jackie. Thanks for having me on the show this evening. I do appreciate it. And I'm right now here at a hotel in Rocky Point doing this interview because Tampa traffic is horrible. Yeah. But again, my name is Cornelius Demps. I'm also known as CC Demps. I'm a local attorney here in the Tampa Bay area. I run the Demps Law Firm in Wesley Chapel. We do appellate, personal injury, and criminal defense and business law. Former prosecutor, of course, in the Sixth Circuit, so Pasco and Pinellas County, and a former attorney general in the Hillsborough area. We celebrated 6 years of having my own practice.
Awesome.
Come this past June. Thank you. And I'm a father of 3, husband of 1. So I'm away from my family tonight. So
I hope that's the ratio.
just had to have to be on the show and have an opportunity to talk about these cases. You know, it's been a lot of legal news here, and the summer
Yeah.
just got started. So yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely. This has just been a crazy time in the news. And for our listeners, you know, of course, I like to touch base with my guests before they come on the show, and we kind of go over the different things that we're going to cover. But every now and then there's just something that comes up and you're like, you know what, we gotta talk about this. And so I'm going to defer to you, Cece, of course, but we just saw a verdict come down, you know what, maybe an hour ago in a case that was obviously getting national headlines. And it, I think, is in the minds of a lot of people. And so I feel like we've got our finger on the pulse. We can't be a live legal call-in talk show and not talk about the live breaking legal news that's coming out. So, of course, I'm talking about the Karmelo Anthony trial, the teenager in Texas who was tried for murder. And I'm sure you know much more about this, or at least got beefed up on it, about this trial than I do. I know that there was obviously a self-defense dynamic that was coming into play. Sad story all around. So I want to get your take on it. I mean, we just got the verdict come down as guilty.
Yeah, this is kind of a wild case. I think it's one where, you know, I think it's not just the underlying facts of the case, but it also brings out the role of social media, the role of politics, and certainly the role of the school board system, especially when it comes to school safety for athletes. So background story about this case is between Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, both track athletes at a track meet in Texas. For background, it's very common at these track meets for different types of athletes to go into other teams' tent to collaborate, meet with people, talk, introduce themselves, and be around one another. So what happened in this instance was, it looks like there was a track meet. It started to rain. Karmelo Anthony went to one of the track tents to talk to people who were in there, and it looks like he took a book bag with him when he went in there as well.
Right.
He's 19 years old at the time of the incident. He is confronted by Austin Metcalf. Austin Metcalf is a member of this team. He sees him. He's like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. You need to leave. Right. The two engage in some type of argument, some type of confrontation that is
and not to cut you off, but they don't know each other prior to this, right?
Correct. They have no relationship to each other. They don't know each other from left to right. So they get into an argument, at which point it looks that Austin Metcalf shoves Karmelo Anthony to get him out of the tent. And in response to that shove, Karmelo Anthony takes a knife out of his book bag and stabs Austin Metcalf in his heart. Falls to the ground. Multiple witnesses saw this case. Immediately, Karmelo Anthony is then investigated, arrested, and he's charged with murder. Right. Now, this case happened in Texas. So, I'm not a Texas attorney. I don't know Texas law. Right. But the parts I do know is that Texas does not have a distinction between murder in the first degree versus murder in the second degree. Texas, you're only charged with just murder. And it's automatically a first degree felony. So if you've seen the news, some news outlets will refer to it as murder one or murder in the first, but Texas doesn't have that. Gotcha. And usually if there was a distinction, there's a mixture between murder one means this was a premeditated planned attack.
Right.
And then murder two would have been this was complete depraved indifference to human life as his response. But Texas does not focus on that distinction. It's just, did you kill somebody unjustifiably under Texas law? So the case happened last year, went to trial relatively soon for a murder trial, going in a year. But the biggest aspect about this race, the one that got national attention, was the perceived racial demographic, because Karmelo Anthony is African American, Austin Metcalf is white. When he's arrested, you have a huge uproar on social media about a black teen being arrested for defending himself against a white teen. That narrative, that rhetoric was pushed heavily in social media in what we call the court of public opinion.
Of course, yep.
The family for Karmelo Anthony and the family for Austin Metcalf and the prosecutors tried to make this very clear to everyone. This case is not about race. this case is about whether or not Karmelo Anthony was justified in using deadly force to kill Austin Metcalf. So race should play no role into it.
Right.
That clearly did not get out to people on social media
At
because
all.
race ended up taking over the rhetoric completely to the
That's
point of
that's all you heard about. Yeah.
it's all you heard about. To the point of even while the trial was going on, a white supremacist group showed up at the courthouse and was protesting across the street about this case, saying, you know, this is the case of a black teen killing another white teen, black on white crime. What are you going to do? And then, of course, that leads to further escalation and other statements that happen out in the media. It also leads into issues about these GoFundMe accounts that happen. So Karmelo Anthony started essentially a GoFundMe account to raise money for his defense. The family raised around $625,000.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Austin Metcalf's family also started a GoFundMe fund for the compensation they needed for the funeral and also for some expenses they faced. That family raised about $600,000. There was a false narrative out in the media that said that the Karmelo Anthony family had actually used the money not for criminal defense, but instead to buy fancy cars, a fancy house, go on vacation, get Gucci, Fendi, Prada items, and the whole nine. And that false narrative became elevated when Ted Cruz had also spoke on it and tried to speak to its truth.
Gotcha.
Ultimately, Snopes had to come out and say, no, none of this is true. Even the Anthony family came out and said, none of this is true at all. So really, race had nothing to do with this case. It should not have had anything to do with this case. And it didn't have anything to do with this case until jury selection.
Yeah.
And one
that's
issue
when
that's
it
going
was
to
right
pop up
back in your face again when you see the jury. Yeah.
Yeah,
Before you get
So
to that,
panel,
though, I'm curious. Did I hear correctly that there was an attempt to try to move the venue, that they did not want the venue to be in that jurisdiction where the incident occurred, or was that not true?
I'm not sure about that. I don't
Okay.
remember.
Do you think that would have been a smart move to try to do, or would it matter when you get in such widespread attention? Yeah.
Yeah, well, unless you're going to try the case on the moon or in Mars, I really don't know how you're going to find.
You can't get away from it. Yeah.
You can't get away from it. I mean, it'll be hard to do. And Texas has different rules than Florida when it comes to venue selection as well. So I'm not aware of that. And then again, during jury selection, that's when race presents an issue that I think is an appealable issue.
Yeah. The
panel was 589 panelists to be jurors. Ultimately, 18 jurors were selected, 11 men, 7 women. It's 12 will deliberate, but 6 were alternates. But all African-American jurors were struck from the panel. All of them were struck. So the panel was completely all white jurors hearing a case involving a black male and a white male. So it looks like any issues about race that could have been avoided are now going to have to be considered by an appellate court when it comes down to his conviction. Evidence at trial went forward. They called about 21 witnesses to talk about what they had seen. People had seen the incident occur. Some of the most powerful testimony did come from the medical examiner, who did talk about the extent of injuries Austin Metcalf suffered before he died, the damage that was to his heart, which I'll spare your readers the details on that, but it's pretty gruesome.
I would
of
imagine.
What they ultimately done. Yeah. And Karmelo Anthony's defense put on the best defense that they could. They did argue that this was a self-defense case, that he felt reasonably unsafe, that he then had a weapon to defend himself and had a right to defend himself. There also were several character witnesses that did testify in Karmelo Anthony's defense, that he was a good kid. I believe Karmelo Anthony's track coach also testified that he was actually going to be the team captain, but ultimately decided not to take on that responsibility, to set focus on other work for the team. So, and the jury went on and deliberated for 3 hours. So when they're deliberating for that long, that means they really are discussing the case. They are reviewing the evidence. They're asking each other the questions that need to be addressed. And what's also important is, prior to them deliberating, the judge did instruct the jury that they would be allowed to consider the lesser included offense of manslaughter. And that's important because it comes down to sentencing in Texas law. So under murder, Karmelo Anthony can be sentenced now from a range from anywhere to 5 years up to 99 years or natural life in prison.
Right.
Had it been manslaughter, he could be sentenced up to a max of 20 years in prison. So that is very unique. Now, just a quick set aside, the fact that the jury was allowed to consider the lesser included in this case versus what happened in the case in South Carolina with the Cho case, that's important too, because the prosecutors there went for an all or nothing verdict.
Yeah.
And ultimately they got a nothing out of that one. So the prosecutors here, I think, were on board to at least make sure a jury did consider manslaughter in case there was anything that was out there as well. But after 3 hours of deliberation, jury came down literally like less than an hour ago and said, yeah, we find him guilty of murder.
Yeah.
So in Texas, the case now moves immediately into the sentencing phase.
Sentencing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so the jury that rendered the verdict is also the jury that now can make a recommendation on sentencing. And the only witness that is available to really testify in Karmelo Anthony's defense right now is his mom. That's it. So, we'll see. As I've not seen a sentence come down yet. It could come down today.
Now, is that just because
tomorrow,
she's the only one there in court at this time that is moving to sentencing, or do you know anything about that? Obviously, we're talking Texas here, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looks like right now, like she's the only one who's available right now. His defense attorneys, if they're able to come up with any other evidence tomorrow, maybe they'll be allowed to bring other witnesses in.
Sure. Like the track coach, teachers, people that can testify to his nature, his character, and things like that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
so I mean,
bad case overall.
I just, before we move on, because we've got a lot of ground to cover, but I just want to get your thoughts on the fact that what it seems like a lot of people were looking at, besides obviously the race factor, is can you meet a shove with deadly force? That sort of thing where you have someone who, pushed you or shoved you. And is it a legal or legitimate response to then meet that with deadly force? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the thing with self-defense is you're allowed to defend yourself as long as the force you use to stop the threat is proportional.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the times, proportionality is the issue that most jurors, most parties have to litigate over.
Yeah.
This is just my personal opinion. If you shove someone and they push you, stabbing them in the heart is not proportional.
Yeah, it's disproportionate.
It's just not. A proportional would be to push him back, or to punch him, or to to run away if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is a sad situation, but based on what I've seen so far, I mean, I think that verdict makes sense based on the evidence that was presented. There is going to be an appealable issue regarding the jury panel.
Absolutely.
That is definitely going to be popping up, and that's going to be his only opportunity on appeal. But I think the state proved this was this proportional use of force.
Well, before we move on that point, I know there's a lot of legal minds out there, and I think I tend to lean this way as well. That basically says that your trial is kind of won and lost at that stage at jury selection. And when you end up with a jury like this on a trial like this, do you tend to agree with that sentiment that your trial is won and lost at the jury?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that is the look, we turn into journalists at this point. We've got breaking news, and I hope you learned something from that. Obviously, it just came down, and I know a lot of people, it was a polarizing, trial, and a lot of people were waiting to see what that outcome would be. And so there you have it, folks. You've heard from Cornelius Demps on that, and I'm glad we were able to discuss it today. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming, going to what happened just about a week ago, maybe not even 2 weeks now, the unfortunate shooting that just happened here locally in Clearwater. And we're seeing these teen takeovers popping up not only in Florida, but all over the country. We've seen it in Orlando. I think there might have even been something in your neck of the woods in Wesley Chapel. I know that there was something in Curtis Hickson Park in Tampa, Icon Park, and I think they come to theme parks. They just make up locations and they spread it through social media. And unfortunately, it resulted in a 16-year-old being charged with attempted second-degree murder and firearm offenses because of a shooting that happened in Clearwater Beach as a result of this teen takeover gathering that attracted hundreds of teenagers to come down to Clearwater Beach. And so these things are popping up. And what exactly do you think is going on here with it? What are police and prosecutors seeing, and how are they charging these?
Yeah, I mean, what they're seeing is, I think, teen angst that's now amplified thanks to the invention of social media.
Yeah.
So, with these, I'm just glad this technology didn't exist when I was in,
I was
middle
thinking the
school or high
same
school.
thing.
I know, but
We're
for the
much better
vicarious
for it.
path, yeah, I know. So these teen takeovers are essentially, they're like flash mob parties. These kids, they get together on various social media platforms, whether Instagram or Snapchat, TikTok, and they say, hey, let's all get together and meet at, this one location. And they announce it as a teen takeover. And then a flyer, some probably Chat GPT or AI generated flyer, gets shared thousands of times
Yeah.
in different groups amongst different people, both teenagers and middle school kids as well. And these kids, they meet at these locations and they show up with no permit, no supervision, and usually no law enforcement available to respond to crowds of that capacity.
Yeah.
And as all of these crowds are, no matter what group you're dealing with, most of the people there are there to have a good, safe time and just hang out. But it always takes a couple of bad apples to spoil the whole bunch.
That's all it takes. Yeah.
That's all it takes. And then the recent incident that we had was in Clearwater. Before that was the incident at Curtis Hickson Park, where they took over Curtis Hickson. Kids got out of control. Property was damaged. People got into fights. Police made multiple arrests. Ultimately, the parents of some parents of some of the children went before Tampa City Council to ask that charges be dismissed or reduced. They be put in diversion programs.
Okay.
And then the next precursor was then in the teen takeover that was supposed to happen in Wesley Chapel at the crates.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't happen because the same way the teens were using social media to organize it, there's also people who are using social media to warn people about it coming.
Good. And we were talking about
Yeah.
that last week. I'm like, it can be used in the same way to alert law enforcement to say, hey, this thing's about to happen. We need to shut it down. So that's good.
Right. So it resulted in Pasco County sheriffs showing up in large numbers at the crate, which is at the Grove off of State Road 54 and 75 in Wesley Chapel. But also businesses in the crate also closed early. So some of the businesses that were open until 9 or 10, so we're closing at 5:30. We're done because we're not going to deal with any of this. The Clearwater incident was something that was completely different. You're talking about Clearwater Beach, major tourism district in Pinellas County, one of the busiest in the state of Florida. Teen Takeover organizes at this beach. Hundreds of kids show up to have a good time. And the background of the shooting is, it looks like these kids who were involved in the shooting were not actually from Pinellas County. They were from Polk County.
Right.
And they had a separate incident that happened between them that was unrelated to Teen Takeover. And they used Teen Takeover as the tool they would use to try to, settle the score, so to speak.
Gotcha.
And so, thankfully during the advent of technology, someone had a phone available to take video. And we all saw this viral video of a young man with a gun running around and shooting people. You saw the folks on the golf cart trying to get out there as soon as you can. You see them running. So, prosecutors and police, what are they looking at? They're looking at a situation where you have too many people with too much time, no supervision, and no way to get things under control. And so when things like this happen, they have to respond and eliminate all the threats as soon as possible. And prosecutors have to make sure that they're investigating and finding the correct offenders, so they're prosecuting the right people who are involved.
Absolutely. And so then for folks that are just, like you said, generally coming just to gather and have a good time, they're not there to be involved in any type of criminal activity, and then someone is shot like this. What kind of charges can arise when you're simply just there, participating? Or maybe you came with your friend and you didn't know your friend had a gun. What kind of things can come out of that when you're just there and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Yeah, so if you're just there and, at Clearwater Beach having a good time, enjoying a hot dog, eating a slushie, and then you see, a fight break out or someone pulls out a gun, you just being there doesn't make you criminally liable for what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You can become liable if in some way you have assisted this person in committing this crime, if you help them bring the gun, if they're a minor and they have a firearm, and then you become aware of them having that firearm. You need to let people know, especially law enforcement, hey, this person has a gun. They shouldn't have to be here. One thing that people have to make sure that they're not doing is not getting involved in these affrays, we like to call them, which is just a big fight. Getting these affrays themselves. They're not doing anything that would make them be personally liable down the road. So that could be if they didn't know about the gun beforehand. This person now pulls out the gun, does the shooting, and they say, hey, give me the gun, I'll hide it. or give me the gun, I'll put it in my
Right,
car,
right.
or go to my friend's house and hide. And if the cops come and ask you where you are, I'll say I don't know where you are. So
Right.
that's why especially for these teens, you have to really be careful of the company that you keep and who you are around every single time. So with these kids, I tell you, if there's a teen takeover, don't go. Just stay at your house or
Yeah.
stay in your
It's
neighborhood or do something like that.
now that you see what these things are about, it's best to not even participate. Now
Right.
there's violence and there's fights. There's no reason for you to even take that risk. And now you have a 16-year-old who's facing attempted second-degree murder charges. So
Right.
with that being the case, you mentioned we're talking about minors here. How are the states looking at this? Is it usually being charged as a juvenile, or can the state prosecute them as an adult in Florida? How does that typically work?
So the state has, prosecutorial discretion in how they want to handle those
Okay.
cases. I mean, if you're 16, 17 years old, the prosecutor, you could be tried as a juvenile, you could, but the state attorney's office has the authority that's called a direct filing, meaning they can just immediately direct file you as an adult. You can score very high on your offense and could be held at DJJ, which is like a juvenile detention center, for up to 21 weeks. But when you're dealing with firearms in cases like this, and kids who are of older ages, around 16 or 17, and the facts of the case, prosecutors will charge you as an adult. And once you are in adult land, all bets are off. Not only are you facing attempted murder charges, but also you're now susceptible to Florida's 1020 life law. So not only do you have a firearm, and now you're waving around a gun, just having the gun. Yeah, exactly. If you have the gun, just having the gun, you get 10 years. Discharge you get is 20. If you hit someone where they live or die, the range is 25 to life in prison. So, you're looking at a situation where a kid who's 16 years old, if
Just got
someone,
real.
just got real. And they were realistically looking at a range of 25 to life in prison. And for the appellate attorneys out there, I know Graham, I know Miller, there's some issues about that, but that takes a long time to get there. And, but it takes a short time for a jury to find someone guilty under 1025 life for attempted murder.
Yeah. So you mentioned the firearm. Is that typically the kind of factors that the state is looking at when they're trying to decide, should this be juvenile or should this be adult? Are they looking at more so how close they are to the age of majority, or is it really just, no rhyme or reason to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, I think, all the offenses have to be looked at. Florida, we try to be one of the strictest states when it comes to criminal offenses involving firearms, especially when a 16-year-old, a child, has a firearm and they are mature enough to know how to use it in a deadly manner. So prosecutors are going to take a look at that. When you're 16, 17 years old, you're right at the cusp of adulthood. So, at that point, it's hard if you're like, 10, 11 years old and you got a gun and you're just shooting it in the air to have fun with your friends. That definitely shows your immaturity. You're probably not going to get charged an adult there. You're probably going to be looked at something of more of a juvenile nature. But when you get older to age, your ability to appreciate the actions that you are taking play a role. And that's why most prosecutors will look at a case like that and the facts and the evidence that they are going to charge you as an adult.
Yeah. So I know there's probably some parents listening. And so I feel like we got to touch on this point, because I know that's something that stands out in my mind when I think of these teen takeovers. Like, where are the parents, and what level of responsibility should the parents have, especially when you have minors in possession of firearms? So what's your take on that?
So if your parents, I mean, I'm a parent of 3 kids right now, 8, 5, and 1-year-old, and none of them have access to firearms. I promise you that. So parents need to really, I would say, look at it like this. If you are a parent and you own a gun and your child has any way to have access to that gun and commit a crime, you are going to be held liable. And one case that we are looking at now that all prosecutors are looking at was the shooting that happened in Michigan about a few years ago, where the young man had suicidal thoughts. He had thoughts about committing crimes. He had issues of doing a mass shooting. And the parents were aware of these thoughts and aware of what he wanted to do. And they had guns in the house. And the parents ended up even, I think, buying him a gun as a part of a Christmas gift. And so not only was that young man prosecuted, but the parents were also prosecuted for being culpably negligent for allowing their child to have access to this firearm. So parents can absolutely be found criminally liable and prosecuted for these cases. They can also be found civilly liable as well, because if you fail to supervise your child or you do any form of negligent entrustment, they are coming after you personally to sue you. And for parents who are homeowners out there, and Jack, you know this well.
Yep, absolutely.
If you get charged with this, and you run to your homeowner's insurance policy to protect you, they're going to say, "Oh, we don't cover intentional acts."
Denied.
So denied, completely denied. So you'll be on the hook for whatever that can be down the road. You have to if you're a parent and your child has access to a gun, you have to make sure that you're doing everything possible to keep them away from it, and make sure that your child is mentally stable in the home, and make sure that they are doing what they need to do. So yes, parents, you can't be held liable for this. Do not be the ostrich and bury your head in the sand, because if someone gets hit or they get hurt or they die, prosecutors are coming for you, plaintiffs' attorneys are coming for you.
Absolutely. And I think just one tidbit of advice, I think for parents, when you hear about these things, you've got to be like what happened over in Wesley Chapel, where the sheriffs were able to mobilize and shut it down before it happened. You've got to know what's going on social media. You've got to, understand what's being organized in some of these hashtags. You can't be the parent that's just oblivious. You have to be aware of what's going on around you and what your kids are involved in. Is there any advice that you would give to concerned parents who are like, I don't know what my kids are doing. I don't know if they get involved in stuff like this. Is there anything you'd like to throw out there?
Get involved with your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's very easy. I mean, you can do this the easy way, or you can do this the parent way. So the easy way is talk to your child. See who they hang out with. See where they go. I mean, you know your child better than anybody else. If your child is outside hanging around with a bunch of people that you never have met or seen before, ask them who this kid is. Ask them what do they do. Ask them what they involved in. Figure out who their parents are so you can introduce yourself and facilitate that relationship. If your kid is staying home all day, watching YouTube 8 hours a day, you got to pay attention to what are they watching. Are they watching, a bunch of K-pop videos and watching people dance? Are they watching a bunch of political stuff that's out there that could be warping their brain and where they are? So facilitating that conversation, making sure that your child, when you talk to them about this stuff, that you approach it in a way of trust and understanding, not of one of condemnation. Sorry.
Right.
Because the more you try to come at your kid as a parent harshly, they are going to, be very quiet, or they're going to say whatever they need to say to you just for you to kind of go away. So really trying to build and maintain a relationship with your kids is important. That's the easy way.
Definitely.
The parent way is downloading apps like Life 360,
yes,
or making sure you have access to all of their passwords. Like, you don't give any kid any type of phone or device with access to the internet without you personally knowing what the password is, so that you can go in there and figure out what they're saying, what they're doing, where they are going. And even I think with Life 360, or there's another app out there, when they go onto these Facebook and social media pages and they start looking at all this stuff, you can ask them like, hey, what is this teen takeover that's happening, at XYZ?
Exactly.
I don't know anything about that. Let's not go there. And then I think lastly for this part, I would say, because people want to throw local government under the bus for this as well. Any of the teen takeovers are not going to stop, because teens are always going to find a way to get together.
Oh, sure.
What we have to do is find a way of facilitating a teen takeover night that is organized by local government officials and law enforcement. We had them when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And then they're done in a safe place, done safely. You have police that's present there. Mm-hmm. You can screen who shows up. Kids can pre-register for it so we can know who the parents are. Make sure these kids have a good and safe night. Because if you do that, the kids who aren't trying to cause problems, they're going to show up and have a good time. The kids who are going to cause problems won't even show up. They won't take the risk.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to throw out for the locals, the Pinellas County folks. There were so many things that we did in our day. Like, I think there was chillers and stormins and Tasco events, and they never had any violence, no fights, no shootings, and so it can be done. And it can be a safe place for kids to congregate and not have trouble. But with that being said, we could go in two directions here. We've got about 20 more minutes of your time, and I think you've touched on some really great points, but I want to give you the opportunity to tell me which way you want to go here. We've got Chud the Builder, which is another thing about, hey, know what your kids are watching, because there's some live streamers out there that are just really interesting people. Or we can jump into Justin Timberlake first. We may have time to cover both. But of course, we know Justin Timberlake was DUI. Chud the Builder is another attempted murder discussion of a live streamer who's, I guess, has some popularity and controversy for being basically a racist. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of, another one of those things where he's got this reputation for being controversial, and now it's a black on white shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we
which
can talk
one
about
you want to touch
definitely-
on?
let's do Chud the Builder.
Okay.
Do Chud the Builder.
Chud the Builder. So apparently this is when, the desire to, overstream everything and, intention and internet fame, or however you want to call it, it just goes wrong. So apparently this guy was in court for another offense, and I can't recall right off the top. I think it was something about not paying a bill, getting kicked out of a restaurant.
Yeah.
Something went wrong. And so he was in court for that. And now he's been charged with attempted murder and other related felonies following a shooting that happened outside of the Tennessee courthouse. And it obviously resulted in a confrontation that resulted in gunfire. A victim, who I believe is a disabled veteran, was shot several times. And now he's facing these charges. So did I kind of get the gist of it right?
Yeah, I mean, you did everything. You did. That's it. I have nothing else.
So, and I did not know Chud the Builder before this, but apparently he's a popular content creator and live streamer, right?
Yeah. So his real name is Dalton Etherly, and he is a part of a larger group of social media influencers, and I use that with quotation marks for those listening on the radio right now. But they're called nuisance influencers. What they do is they go places, they do the dumbest things, and they do it in order to record the reactions from people. So, like, some of them are kind of like, and so I would say, like, Etherly is like a subset of that, which are these like these racist influencers, where they go places, they record themselves, and he's been popular on X, for a very long time.
Okay.
As well on YouTube, where he would walk around with a cowboy hat, have a firearm on him, and specifically go into areas where there were a lot of African Americans.
And try to do that bait thing.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of young African Americans, young Latinos, but mainly African Americans. He would record himself. He would find a group of guys.
This guy.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the dark parts of the internet eventually come to light, so they pop up. And he would go places where there'd be young African American kids just hanging out or talking, or people just just doing their thing, and he would openly say the most racist things to them, and people would be like, "What's this guy's problem?" And then when they would approach him, he would pull out his gun and they would run away. And that's important, because that means there is a library of videos out there that prosecutors are going to look at, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, you anticipated one of my questions. Yeah, good. Yeah. So he's now documented a pattern of this type of behavior. Yeah.
So in what happened in Tennessee, to understand the shooting case, exactly what you talked about beforehand, he had gone to a local restaurant, had ordered food, tab came down, he decided not to pay. When he was leaving the restaurant, the staff approached him to say, "Hey man, you got to pay your tab." He turns on his camera and immediately starts making all these racist epithets to everyone who's approaching him. And those staff members decide, "Oh, we got something for you. We'll just tell the owner." And the owner says, "Oh, I got something for you. I'm gonna call the cops." And so he is then arrested for, essentially in Florida, we would call defrauding an innkeeper, like a dine and dash.
Gotcha.
And so that's what he was charged for. But during that case that came out, he was making all these racist statements. And the people who weren't aware of Etherly were like, "Well, the racist stuff is weird, but, you need to pay your tab, man. You can't steal
just
money.
Pay your bill."
And then, exactly. And then Etherly sees another opportunity where he can be a nuisance influencer. And so he sees an African-American disabled veteran outside. He begins yelling racist epithets toward him. This man is also a veteran. This black man is also a veteran, and is like, "You're not saying anything to me. I've defended my country, and I recognize your First Amendment speech, but you're going to recognize you're not free of consequences for what you say." And so he goes up to him to start saying, "Hey, you can't say that." And then Etherly decides, "Now I'm going to pull out my gun. I'm open fire, and I'm going to scream, 'Stand your ground. I have to defend myself.'" He's arrested. And then when the cops come to the scene to ask questions, Etherly pretty much admits everything. He says, "I was defending myself. This man attacked me first, and I have video I can show you of what happened." And so the cops say, "All right, let's take a look at the video." And they watch the video and they go, "Yeah, you're under arrest."
That backfired.
And so he's taken to the jail, taken to the courthouse. His initial bail was $1.25 million. which
Yeah.
sounds very high because it is very high in a case like this.
Mm-hmm.
It was recently lowered to $1 million, and the judge in Tennessee also ruled that no more than one bond company can carry $100,000 of the debt. So that means he needs to find 10 bond companies and be able to put up at least $10,000 each to be able to get out. And as of today, he's not been able to get out. And he has been able to get out because he's not been generating that much
I was
money.
gonna say he can't live stream from in there.
Well,
His
well,
revenue's down.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, it sounds like he never had revenue. Like based on what's
Really?
been shown on his YouTube and his Instagram accounts, and what family is saying, he wasn't really generating
No
that much
way.
money.
He
Yeah,
wasn't.
because when you go on certain platforms like YouTube and Facebook and say this racist stuff, you get
Oh,
what's
it
called
bans it.
demonetized.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
monetize that kind of content.
exactly.
Oh,
So
interesting.
he did all this to make money that never came.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So this kind of seemed a little bit of deja vu of the first case we were talking about with Karmelo Anthony, where we have a situation where there is a fight that leads to essentially deadly force. Now, fortunately, this veteran did not die. From what I understand, he
Right.
survived, correct? But
Mhm.
then we've got it's the other way around now. It's a white male who has shot a black victim, and we've got a lot of those similar factors here. So how do you think these kind of arguments are going to play out for an attempted murder charge when you have, once again, someone claiming self-defense?
So in the Karmelo Anthony case, you have self-defense, but there's not proportional response to the threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the issue that we have in the FLALAW case, in the Chud the Builder case. What you have is someone who is claiming stand your ground self-defense, and there is now a library of evidence to show that this is not an isolated incident.
Gotcha.
You have a repeated pattern and a repeated conduct of baiting people into these arguments. And the core principle of self-defense that everyone learns in law school, if you watch, even if you're not an attorney, if you watch Matlock through Law and Order,
Yeah.
you know this. You cannot claim self-defense if you are the initial aggressor.
Right.
You have to, if you do start anything as the initial aggressor, you have to withdraw your threat and make it clear that I'm moving away. So if Chud made these comments and someone said, "Hey man, I'm gonna fight you on it," and Chud said, "All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let me put my gun away. I'm gonna walk away. Please forgive me. Bye," and they leave, the continuum of a threat that then ends, and then he can remove himself and he can be the initial aggressor. But that's not the facts we have. What I anticipate Chud the Builder's defense is going to claim is he had a right to defend himself. He had a large black man, veteran, coming to attack him, a veteran with military training and military expenses, who was going to attack him. And so he had a right to defend himself. And he has a right to claim stand your ground defense. Yeah. And skilled prosecutors are going to slice that apart by showing that this is not isolated. He has a history of doing these type of videos, getting people in trouble. If anything, he specifically targets people, especially African Americans, to get the reaction so he can record it. And so the old adage that it existed before is still true to this day. Play stupid games, win stupid prize.
Yeah, there's another one that I'm not going to say on the air, but was it
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
was it FAFO? But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, family-friendly show. Yeah.
So we have a situation where we've got a live streamer, and this is obviously becoming popular. Live streaming can be lucrative for a lot of people, and people are documenting so much of their life, and it sounds like and I'm calling him by his social media personality, but this Chud the Builder guy has now compiled lots of evidence now that can be essentially used against him. And, you putting back on your defense lawyer hat, this kind of smartphone, social media videos, how does that, what goes through your mind when you have a client like this who's live streaming everything?
Yeah, if it's something like this, my firm sends out what's called a non-engagement letter. We're not taking it at all. That's what goes through my head. It's like You can't, you have to be, and this kind of goes for anybody else who's listening. If you want to start your own YouTube and Facebook pages, do that. We have our own pages for our firm, and that stuff is fine to see. But be careful what you put out there, because once it's out there, it's out there. It's hard to take things down. It's hard to get things removed. And, in a case like this, if I'm the defense attorneys and judge telling me I claim self-defense, but I have an entire history of doing this type of stuff and trying to make myself famous, well, I got good news and bad news for you. Good news, you're famous. Bad news is it's not the famous that you want. You're infamous.
It's the wrong kind. Yep.
And if you're a prosecutor, or if you're a defense attorney, one thing I'm worried about is prosecutors filing, I don't know what Tennessee calls it, but in Florida we call it a Williams Rule notice, where you don't bring in other people from prior incidences to help show that this is intent of what he's trying to do, not bad character evidence, but this is intent of what he's trying to do, is trying to bait Black people. So if I'm a defense attorney, I'm scared of a skilled prosecutor pulling every single video, trying to identify every other victim in those videos, find those people to come and appear at a court hearing so I can have the greatest Williams Rule hearing of all time. It is a terrifying prospect for a defense attorney. I mean, in a case like this, if I represented Chud, you got to negotiate some type of sentencing in this case. I mean, you got to look out for your client. You could try to run the stand your ground motion, let the state and let the court hear that evidence, because if you win, usually a stand your ground motion, that's automatic immunity. A judge can dismiss the case. But if you lose it, you need to move immediately to sentencing, because you're not going to find a fair and impartial jury in Tennessee or anywhere on the planet that is not going to understand the facts of this case, know what's going on, and will not find a way of acquitting you based on the facts that are presented.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we're talking about, cases where, cameras are capturing everything, we also have to consider the fact that, nowadays you've got body cam footage, and body cams are capturing things as well. And so I think that's a nice segue into our last segment that we're going to talk about tonight. I feel like we got to do it just because I'm a big Justin Timberlake fan. And if I were on a jury, I would probably get stricken immediately, because he can do no wrong in my eyes. But with that being said, I think he did some wrong here. So Ed, you can cue up that clip in just a second. But this is kind of old news. Obviously, Justin had gotten himself in some hot water with the DUI. But the reason why it came back up is because he was pushing hard to keep people from seeing that body cam footage. And unfortunately, he lost the battle with that. Looks like a good majority of that did get released to the public. And before I get your take on it, I feel like it's important. We're summertime now. We have a lot of tourists coming into the area. We have kids out of school and college, and they're drinking. And so drinking and driving is obviously a big deal. And we want people to understand and how to be safe. And so maybe they can learn a little bit from Justin Timberlake. So that being said, you want to play the clip really quickly here. It's about a minute and a half or so.
I'm on tour.
What are you doing?
I'm on the world tour.
These are the moments global superstar Justin Timberlake did not want the world to see.
So the reason for the stop is because you're veering off to the left, and then you're not stopping at the stop signs.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Body cam footage from Timberlake's June 2024 DWI arrest shows officers approaching his vehicle just after midnight in the affluent beachside town of Sag Harbor, New York.
What's your name?
Justin Timberlake.
You are Justin Timberlake?
The singer seen stumbling, slurring his words, and struggling to complete a series of field sobriety tests.
Put your left foot on the line. Yep. You're going to have your right foot in front of your left. See what's up.
And then just walk. I'm sorry. I'm
Ready?
I'm a little nervous. By the way, these are like really hard tests.
Timberlake arrested for suspicion of driving while intoxicated.
Just turn around for me, please.
A woman, an apparent friend of Timberlake's, tries to intervene.
Can you guys please just do me a favor? Because you loved Bye 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 or like Sexy Back. Do me one favor.
More footage shows Timberlake cuffed to a table at the police station before being taken to a cell.
30
all night?
It might not be this one. You might be over at the other one, and they actually have blankets for you.
That's a wow, man.
Earlier this month, Timberlake sued the village of Sag Harbor, trying to block this video's release. But both sides came to a settlement to allow portions of what happened that night to be made public.
I had one martini and I followed my friends home.
In 2024, Timberlake pleaded guilty to driving while impaired, saying this outside of court.
This is a mistake that I made, but I'm hoping that whoever's watching and listening right now can learn from this mistake.
Justin Timberlake.
So, Cece, you obviously are familiar with this, and he's talking about, I just had a martini, man. I'm following my friends home. Like, what am I dealing with this for? Did he say too much? We've got a few minutes. What did he do wrong? And give folks a couple tips in these last few minutes left that we have.
He talked too much. He talked too much. Yeah, exactly. If you're pulled over for a DUI, there's not much you can do. You cannot play lawyer on the side of the road when you're pulled over. I tell people all the time, if you have the signs of impairment, you have a bad driving pattern, and the cops find suspicion that your normal faculties are impaired, you are going to be arrested for DUI, period, in the story. You can't talk your way out. So if Justin Timberlake needs to be a cautionary tale to people, you cannot talk your way out of a DUI, no matter how famous you are, no matter if you cry yourself a river.
No matter if you're on a world tour. It's not good for the world tour, man.
It's not, or maybe it is. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, that's it. But yeah, you can't do that at all. You have to just really keep quiet and not say anything to self-incriminate yourself.
Was there anything that you think he did right, or was it just all bad?
I mean, being polite to law enforcement is good, because you don't want to make it worse by being combative or belligerent and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
With DUI laws, there is a way that you can try to be, compliant and say you're not going to do certain things. There are consequences for that now. So if you say, officers, respectfully, I don't want to do those sobriety exercises, or respectfully, I don't want to give a breath test or anything. There's ways that you can do that. There are consequences associated with doing that.
Yeah,
but
the law recently changed on that, right?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are finding out that the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the good thing that he did do. He didn't try to be combative. He tried to be friendly. The bad thing that he did was he kept trying to be too friendly.
The jokester, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, I think, trying to use his celebrity status. I believe he said, "I'm Justin Timberlake." And the guy was like, "Who?"
Yeah.
Right after he said that, I'm like, yeah. Unless you deal with somebody who graduated from late 90s to mid 2000s, no one else will know you are.
Who cares? Unless I'm the arresting officer, you better shut it up.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh, last minute. Do you think the friend helped or hurt? The one that's like, just do us a favor, man. You bye.
No,
you got
exactly.
a friend coming to the scene. Does that help or hurt you at all?
No, it hurts you. No, don't call your buddies, because if I'm a police officer, I pull it over who's suspected of DUI, and some random car shows up with some dude I don't know.
Yeah,
you're lucky you left there alive in one piece.
Yeah.
So don't do any of that. The best way you can help your friend: post their bond, bring them home, get them some Tylenol and some food to let them sober up. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, and rock your body into an Uber, guys. Come on.
Wow. Well, we see Justin Timberlake bingo at this point. We're gonna get there. We got to believe.
Cece, as always, it's been a great show. I'm so sorry we couldn't do this in person, but traffic is traffic, and we know how that goes. But thank you so much for joining us on FLA Law Live on the Radio. We for sure have to have you come back again. It's always a pleasure. Plug your firm and your firm phone number before we go.
Yes, please. Yeah, find out more of us at www.dempslaw.com, DEMPSLAW.com. We're also on all social media platforms, and call us at 813-602-1126.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. We'll see you next week at 5 p.m. Tuesday with FLA Law on the Radio. Good night.